Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Knapik. Every week, we talk with interesting people in a variety of professions for ideas to enhance your success in all aspects of life. Successful Living with Bill Knapik starts right now. Here's Bill Knapik.
Welcome to the show. It is Successful Living with Bill Knapik. I'm your host, Bill Knapik. Thank you for joining us. Today we have two interesting topics, or two interesting segments. We have Neal Benedict. We're going to talk about sales. His company is Silver Brick Sales Solutions. We'll find out the latest there, what his company does, how he can help you maybe, or how he can even help your company. In addition, they say readers are leaders, and we have a tremendous author, an author that I just discovered, Douglas E. Richards. He wraps up suspense, action, and science in tremendous books. His new book is Unidentified. That's Douglas E. Richards. But first, we're going to hear from Neal Benedict with Silver Brick Sales Solutions. Hey, Neal, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. Always good to talk to you.
Well, here we are again. We took a year off from the Successful Living show, and we're back bigger and better, I think, than ever as we're on KPRC, and we're at a very special time right here Sunday night at the time of broadcast. And I'm going to just first say, before we get into what you do, is that I think that Sunday and Sunday evening is such a great time for people. I think it's a time where people are doing a lot of preparation, thinking about the week to come, thinking about goals. Maybe they're going on a trip to conduct business. So this is perfect timing to talk about sales in your company, Silver Brick Sales Solution. Neal, let's tell people about your company.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, we are a consulting/coaching/training business. We help individuals and companies become extremely successful in selling. People who don't necessarily come from a selling discipline, or those people who are new to selling, or those people who just want to sharpen the saw, will help them understand their sales organization a bit better. We'll help them dive into some of the challenges that may be preventing them from achieving their revenue goals. And then we'll put together plans and get our hands dirty working with them on putting all the things in place that they need to in order to become a very effective sales organization.
In fact, some of the things that people think salespeople are born salespeople, but when we analyze it and look at it, it's a lot of systems and procedures, and a lot of listening goes on. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, there are no born surgeons in the world, and there are no born salespeople. It requires us to really focus on the skill set that we're trying to develop and trying to be extremely good at. And salespeople need it as much or more as anyone else does. And I think there is a misnomer where personality sells, and fundamentally sales is a behavioral driven discipline. It's systematic, and it needs to be approached that way if you want to be successful at it.
Let's give people an idea of the menu. Now, we'll tell it right up front, Neal Benedict, Silver Brick Sales Solutions. Let's tell them the website. They'll see the menu there, but let's remind people what you're doing as far as helping individuals, even groups, not just here in Houston, but even beyond. So let's lay that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So our business really is designed to be almost a one-stop shop when it comes to the function of selling. So we are very focused on doing deep dives into organizational capabilities related to sales. So we'll help you understand the types of people that you have working for you. We will assess their selling capabilities and help them to understand for themselves their communication style and some of the challenges that they face in being successful in sales. And we'll put together a roadmap in order to fill some of those gaps. And that includes training. It includes individual coaching. It will include, in some cases, some consulting for the business to build very specific tool stacks, for an example, on the technology side, so that people are using the most modern and effective selling tools that are available. And we'll continue to work with you until you start to see all these pieces coming together and working as a whole and driving more and more revenue back into the business. And that's our focus overall. And so there's no one size that fits all. There's no program that we can necessarily offer people that looks exactly the same for clients. So we tend to customize our solutions for the organization and for the individuals based on what they need. And again, there's a core part of that where we teach the Sandler foundations. Sandler is a training methodology that's been around for over 60 years now. and where we've sent close to 400,000 people through that training program worldwide. However, that foundation sometimes comes with, a need to get more focused in one particular area versus another, and we'll make sure that we understand that for the people that we're working with, so that we can be not only systematic about the training, but systematic about the other tools we bring to bear on your particular sales challenge.
I'd like to get into delving more into the Sandler method, but before we do, as you talked about the assessment part of someone's level where they are at right now, I would think maybe it's a combination of both. What are you finding? If I want to improve my skills, I may come to you and say, Neal, I know I need help in this area, but do you ever have people that may be in a rut and they don't even know where they need help, but they look to you and they say, Neal, here's what I'm doing, but I'm not really sure what I need to work on. What are you finding there?
Yeah, I think that self-awareness is very challenging for all of us. We all struggle with looking internally and trying to put our finger on areas where we struggle. And so I would say a lot of the times when people come to us, they do think that they're struggling in one particular area, and they believe the symptom is the problem. And so we need to dig into it to really understand, why you believe that you're struggling in that particular area. And it usually comes as a surprise when we dig into it and we understand that, again, you're simply working and looking at this particular symptom right now. We need to dig in deeper to understand why that's happening. We understand the categories. Everybody generally knows what category their struggle is in, but they simply have a hard time putting their finger immediately on it. So we help them both understand the category of the challenge that they're in, and then we look for very specific plans in very specific things that are causing it. And we'll dive deeper into that and give you some insight into, both what we see and what we're actually witnessing and experiencing. And then we'll put them even through some, things like Psychometrics to help them maybe use that tool as a window into some challenges that they may not know at all exist in their ability to sell effectively. So yeah, we look at different components of that. And we're almost always, approaching it from a standpoint of let's not assume that they know, let's not assume that we know, let's dig into it in more detail and make sure that we have a customized plan and an approach to that individual.
Give us a word on psychometrics. What are some of the exercises or things that are involved in when you get to that part of the assessment? Yeah.
Psychometrics, of course, is just a broad term for the tools that are used to understand communication style, personality. They're used to define a lot of times, key characteristics of individuals, and they're really designed not as a pass-fail type of scenario. They're really designed as a tool to help us dig deeper into our own individual personalities and how we come off to other people. We do one of the psychometrics we like to use, for an example, is DISC, and that's a very popular one. It's very well known in the business world, and that is a tool that fundamentally just helps you understand where do you get your energy from? What types of things are more difficult for you? Not things you can't do, but things that require more energy for you to be successful at. And the second thing it really measures is your communication style, how you are perceived by others, how you could potentially adjust that communication style when you're dealing with another style. And it gives you some insight into, when you're in a selling career, we have to constantly adjust. We get paid to adjust to the client. But if we don't understand our own communication style and we can't quickly identify someone else's, it's more difficult for us to adjust to, building rapport with those individuals. And DISC is really, for an example, a psychometric tool that helps you frame all that up and helps you become a much better communicator once you understand your personal communication profile and that profile of others.
And you mentioned earlier the Sandler method of selling. What is that? What are the components of that? How is it different than other methods?
Well, there are a lot of great sales methods out there. There are a lot of programs that will teach you to sell well. The reason that Sandler is a little bit different, one is that the program is very accessible. It's one of those programs that, is geared around simplicity. It's not easy, but it's simple. And so the simplicity of the program really makes it accessible for salespeople of all stripes. Whether you're selling cars, whether you're selling real estate, whether you're selling high-ticket software, the sales methodology and program, again, is relevant and accessible to all those different people. And it's also, whether you're a new salesperson, your early career and you're just starting out, or whether you're a 30-year veteran, there are things inside of the program that bring you back to fundamentals and help you, again, reset your capabilities no matter where you are in your selling career. So that's what I really like about Sandler, is that the accessibility and the simplicity of it. The second thing that really differentiates us is our focus on the reinforcement-based training. We really believe in learning in small chunks, reinforcing that behavior, and then learning something new. So we're really focused on making sure that the curriculum is consumed on a reasonable time frame, that you have time to ingest it, that you have time to understand it, you have time to practice it, and you have time to debrief it, so that you will be constantly working on your behavioral patterns and your attitude related to selling, versus trying to consume a large amount of information and then use that in your daily role. It's difficult for any individuals to consume that amount of information and actually apply it. And so our approach is a slowed down approach that really encourages you to work on almost a daily basis of those skills and behaviors, so that, again, it becomes ingrained and ultimately becomes a habit in what you do.
We're talking with Neal Benedict with Silver Brick Sales Solutions. As far as helping people, let's just take a look back, if you would, at this past year. As you were out there helping people in groups, how often were you helping individuals versus where you were teaching groups?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we tend to want to work with anybody who needs our help. We believe that, sales is a very honorable profession. We believe that it needs to be done well in order to stay that way. We believe there's a lot of mistrust in salespeople, and we believe that some of that is warranted. And so we want to make sure that anybody who needs sales training has a path to get it. And so we do work with a lot of individuals, which is a smaller part of our business, I must admit. We don't work exclusively with individuals, and generally speaking, companies will come to us with a challenge in their sales organization, and they'll want to bring their sales reps with them and help us really focus on the larger company sales challenge while helping to educate their salespeople. But yes, we probably do. If I was to gauge the mix of people that we engage with, it's probably 20% individual and 80% corporate.
And when you're helping the corporate client, are you going to their place of business? Are you at a retreat or a sales meeting? How does that work? Yeah,
that's a good question as well. We oftentimes will invite people into our training center, whether that's virtual or whether it's in person. There's a couple reasons why we do that. One is that if somebody is engaged with us directly and they're not in their own environment, or at least where they're focused on the digital delivery of the training, they tend to be more focused and they're not distracted by things going on around them. So we like to have people in our centers if we can, and again, we're doing a lot via Zoom these days, of course, but it keeps the distractions minimal, and it also gives us an opportunity to develop that. We always want to meet with our people that we're training at least periodically, even if they are attending via Zoom, because it develops the relationship with us. They feel more comfortable getting coaching from us. They see us on a regular basis, and proximity, of course, is one of the things that breed likability and trust. So we need to be in the same proximate location with people as much as we can, so that we try to encourage that. We do on-site training. So if somebody wants to train, multiple salespeople, and they want to do it in the confines of their office and their own conference room, we certainly will do that as well. So there's a bit of a mix there. I would say, again, probably close to 70% of the training that we do will be in our own centers and using our own methods, and then about 30% we'll spend time on the client site doing training.
And when you say your own centers, where are they? Around Houston, or
yes.
Where do you find them?
Yes. Yeah, we have them actually all over the U.S. We have locations here in Houston. We have two physical locations here in Houston, however, but our training centers tend to exist all over the U.S. And that's one of the other things that is a differentiator for Sandler, is that we have a lot of very well trained individuals delivering the methodology and the training, throughout North America. So it really, just about every major NFL city, you will find a Sandler training center, for an example.
If a sales manager, let's say, or someone directing a sales force seeks you out, and I would think they have through the years, and they say, we have these things we want to work on, do you hear the same things over and over again from different companies? And sometimes when we talk about something that's a problem in any category of life, we think it's so unique, but yet it's the same thing over and over. But as far as it goes, what do they ask you for if there's anything that you hear a common thread with with someone that's leading a group of salespeople?
Yeah, absolutely. No, there are a lot of themes that we hear over and over again. The thing is that the themes don't necessarily mean the same thing. The terms don't necessarily mean the same thing to the same people. So we have to be careful about, again, making assumptions even when they're identifying and using the same grammar to describe a problem. But I think the main challenge that people will come to us with is the ability that the salespeople's ability to get good, solid meetings and good, solid opportunities built. I think that's the challenge today for most salespeople, is that because of COVID, it's accelerated the decline in face-to-face meetings with salespeople. That was happening before COVID. So COVID didn't cause it. COVID accelerated it. So there's been a much more difficult time for salespeople to be getting those face-to-face meetings with clients at this point. So they prefer spending a lot of time up front with a salesperson whenever possible, not meeting face-to-face. So utilizing different tool sets than salespeople have been traditionally used to using has been a big deal for a lot of salespeople. So I'd say the number one issue right now that people are coming to us with is, how do I function in this digital environment? How do I continue to do the same things I was doing without the ability to sit across the table from someone as regularly as I'd like to? And, how do I continue to build things like rapport? How do I continue to move the sales cycle forward? How do I make sure that I have mutual commitment from the buyer? All of which have to largely take place remotely, and get to the point where we are not as dependent. Not that it's going away, but that we're not as dependent on the face-to-face meeting, and that's a big challenge for a lot of organizations still today.
Regardless of COVID or not, one thing I'm hearing, all the time. Excuse me, I'll take that out. All the time, maybe more than ever, is I hear people saying how busy they are. Oh, I'm so busy. That alone is another challenge to get people's important time. But I've never heard people say they're so busy so often, and so many of them. My response is, we're all busy. You don't have to tell me that. I'm busy too, but it's a theme out there.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I think, from a selling standpoint, you're always going to be busy. I'm not sure people, I don't think any more hours were added to the day during COVID. I think we still have a 24-hour day. And, but I do think that there are priorities. And as a salesperson, what you really need to understand is how big of a priority is it to get the problem that you solved for that customer. And if the customer has a real problem, and if it is a priority to get it solved, and it is causing enough challenges for them to focus on it, then again, busyness won't be an issue. In sales, busyness often means that we haven't done a due diligence in really understanding the problem that the client is facing, and we haven't done a good enough job of relating how we might be able to help with that particular problem. So if people are pushing us off because we're busy, it's usually our problem, not the problem of the client. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, nobody really cares about us and what we're doing. We're very focused individually and corporately on the few small things that are really important to us at any particular moment. When it comes to selling, one of the things that we really need to understand as professional salespeople is that if the conversation or the outreach really is focused on us, then that's probably the wrong focus, because again, people really don't care about what you do. They only care about how your solution will solve their particular problem. So there really needs to be an understanding if, first of all, do they have the problem that you solve? How bad is the problem that they have that you solve? And, is it bad enough to invest money to solve that particular problem? And if those things are generally true, there'll be a point in time when you are spending a good amount of energy to relay how you're going to solve that problem, and that could bleed over to some of the features and functions of your product line. But usually that's toward the end of a selling cycle or the end of a conversation, not at the beginning.
There's so much content out there. There are so many things that are requesting our attention in terms of, even when we think about just things to do, restaurants here in the Houston area and depending on the town you're in, but there is so much here. When we want to listen to a radio show, this radio show, podcast, TV, there is so much content. Part of the elements of someone receiving our message is discernment on their part. So it makes it extra challenging because we are bombarded, I think, more than any other generation, not just of a lot of things that are distracting, but right now on our horizon, we have a lot of things that are negative things that cause us to be distracted. So it's a very interesting world at this point in time, but it makes it sometimes more challenging, I think, for whatever the salesperson is out there, depending on their potential clients or customers' need at the time.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It reminds me actually of a book. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's called How to Read a Book by Adler, and
I need to read that
the whole
one.
premise of the book. Yeah, well, it's a bit academic, but it's interesting because the whole book is premised on the idea that not everything needs to be read, and you need to understand first and foremost what you need to be reading. And it's the same with consuming podcast content or everything else. Not everything needs to be listened to, and you've got to really try to understand for yourself using your own systems and methods to say, okay, what is it I should be consuming? Because you could consume content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and barely scratch the surface of what's available. So yeah, it reminds me of that particular book because it helps you really peel through the fog and say, okay, what should I be actually focused on?
It's funny you mentioned that because one of my influential things as a child, it was called, I forget what it was called, but it was a newsstand in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. You're familiar with Pennsylvania, but I went to that newsstand, and that triggered my imagination. It was a bookstore newsstand. It had magazines, newspaper, paperbacks, and when I went in there as a youngster that was so curious and creative, I would go in there. It was over, and that's before the internet. These are just books that are physical things, objects, magazines. I walked through the news center there in Pennsylvania, and I looked at that stuff, and I said, man, I want to read it all. That's before the internet, and maybe I have a little ADD along the way, but that's another story. But yes, there was so much content, and the curious mind, someone that really wants to grab life, it is fascinating, all the subjects that someone could be involved with. So that adds to the fun, and I like what you said. Not everything needs to be read, and you have to have the mindset when you do choose something to go in there 100% and get the most out of it. I'm going to take those words this week and put them into practice, Neal. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as we have about, 6-7 minutes left, Neal, what are some of the other things that you want people to know about?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the things that we want to help people on is to realize that, selling involves a lot more than just technique. And most people think selling is all about the technique. And just when we learn any skill, right, our default is, we want to improve our technique. And the challenge is that, with anything, that technique is a small part of the process of learning anything. And sales is very much like that. And so one of the things that we'll try to highlight in Sandler, for an example, is that there are other components to being successful in selling, probably components that are more important than your technique. And those are things like your attitude towards the product that you're selling, your attitude towards your marketplace that you're selling into, your attitude towards the company that you work for, and how you feel about them. All these things which are under your control and that you can determine. You've got to have a good attitude and the right focus in order to be successful at selling the products and the services that you sell. So we try to teach people about how do you develop the right attitudes to approach each day with the right mindset to be successful. And the other thing is really the behaviors, right? What we do on a daily basis is much more of a contributor to our success than what we think about and what we plan on doing, and the goals that we set. All that is important. However, if you don't begin to execute on them, and if you don't do it consistently, meaning daily, you will not be as successful as you need to be, because the rubber hits the road when you build a plan that gets executed every day. And this isn't rocket science. It sounds very straightforward and simplistic, but you'd be surprised at how many people come into sales training and they have absolutely no plan. They basically show up at work and they respond to their day. Whatever's in their email inbox and whatever phone call, voicemails are sitting in their inbox, they start their day and they'll respond to those. And sometimes that takes the entire day, and sometimes it doesn't. So we try to train our salespeople, that you're either controlling your day or somebody else is controlling it. And the question is ultimately, who's better to control your day, you or somebody else? And so those are types of things that we want to make sure that our salespeople understand, that you cannot be as successful as you need to be in sales if you don't look at your attitudes and behaviors and develop those as much or more than you're developing your technique.
We're talking with Neal Benedict, Silverbrick Sales Solutions. Neal, along the way through the year, you also have classes, or let's tell people about some of the things where they may meet you or some things you're doing there in the general public.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, we're in Houston, and I do some work with University of Houston in a couple of the programs with SBDC. So I'm actually in January and February, we're already doing some seminars. So if you're familiar with SBDC at all, take a look at them. If you're not, it's at sbdchouston.com. You can look them up. They offer great programs for entrepreneurs and for small business owners looking to get a leg up on a variety of different topics. Sales tends to be one that we run on a fairly regular basis. So we're doing a lot of those seminars in the new year. We're going to be live. We're going to be in person again. So I'm excited about that. And then I also work with the SHORE program, which is an entrepreneurial program inside of the University of Houston that brings in new business owners or people who have a concept or an idea, and they get consulting support, they get help, and I tend to work on the sales side and give the consultants mentorship on being effective and developing a sales strategy for a new business. So we'll do those types of things as well. We run probably 6 to 8 types of seminars for actual students throughout the year. So we do everything from basic sales training. Think of it as sales training 101. We run sales mastery, where if you are an experienced sales professional and you understand your methods quite well, then we bring you into a more advanced program. We will run customer service training. So if you have a customer service organization that needs to be more client focused, we will help organizations focused on how to do that with a customer service group. We run selling seminars for non-selling professionals, for attorneys, and for CPAs that need to bring clients into the business, but their career is not selling. So we help them figure out strategies, approaches, and techniques in order to do that more effectively. And then we do everything from prospecting workshops to cold calling specifically to writing good emails. So there's a lot of and these are all sales focused. They're not marketing focused. So they're really designed at generating meetings. And so we'll do a lot of that throughout the course of the year for our students as well.
Before we close the segment, Neal, give us an idea what someone can expect, maybe one piece of advice, one sales tip for the established, seasoned salesperson that's out there. What are you telling someone that's been doing this year in and year out and that has been successful?
Yeah, that's a good question, because those are oftentimes the hardest people to speak to. So the main thing I like to tell those people is don't assume. Walk into sales meetings with no assumptions whatsoever. Become childlike in your inquisition again. Become like a new salesperson again. Continue to think of yourself as someone who needs to understand more about the client. And even though the client says certain things, don't assume that what that means for the client. So just approach it with a new, fresh approach every day. Think of yourself as mentally as a new salesperson, even though that you're not. And again, put the assumptions on the table and just listen to your clients.
And I think also the people that are successful in sales are always wanting to learn. The true successful ones are those that realize, hey, I don't know everything. I'm successful, yes, but it's always, like you said, that childlike curiosity for learning is certainly a super fuel to help us achieve all the goals that we have. Neal, let's tell people how they can reach out to you.
Sure. You can certainly visit my website at silverbricksolutions.sandler.com. That's again, silverbricksolutions with an S, .sandler.com. You're welcome to reach out to me directly via email or phone. My email is neal.benedict@sandler, SANDLER.com, or my number here is 281-771-2876. Again, 281-771-2876. Or you can look me up via LinkedIn, just Neal Benedict. I should pop up close to the top.
Neal, thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Neal Benedict, Silver Brick Sales Solutions. Well, I hope you enjoyed that segment with Neal Benedict, Silver Brick Sales Solutions, and now a tremendous author, Douglas E. Richards. Here we go. It is always great to talk to super authors, and here he is, Douglas Richards, a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. He weaves suspense, action, and science, which is so interesting, all in one thing. Douglas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Well, your books, I've just discovered you, and I'm so excited about the books. I started with the book Wired, and then went to Amped, and then went to The Cure. And, of course, you have a new book out just this month called Unidentified. But first of all, if someone has not heard about you, let's tell people what you're doing and about your books in general.
Yeah, so I write what I call near-future thrillers. So kind of like what Michael Crichton did a lot of times. I'm compared to him often, where it's 10, 20, 30 years in the future, usually always set on Earth, but it kind of extrapolates technologies, and they're thrillers. So there's lots of action and adventure, but also I'm kind of known for weaving in a ton of accurate science and having plenty of food for thought. And most of my books, especially like the last 15 of them, I have author notes at the back where I go through kind of what's real and what's not, with respect to the science, and I have references and all that sort of people. And people really kind of love that as much as they love the thriller. That they can be entertained, but then afterwards they get to kind of learn some really cool, mind-blowing stuff as well.
Exactly. In fact, in the books Wired and Amped, it was interesting to hear all the things that you wrote about the human brain and even the capabilities, some of which are real, and I'm going to guess some are exaggerated. But yes, that's always fascinating to get a good story and then learn at the same time. And you have a degree in microbiology, so I'm sure that helps. Plus, I suppose as you do each book, you're also doing extra research to have those great facts along the way.
Oh, I do a ton of research. No. So I have a master's degree in molecular biology. I was in a PhD program, but I was kind of sloppy and I just didn't love the bench work. I love the literature, but so I left that. So like I say, a master's in molecular biology, and I do a ton of research. In fact, I often say I use every good idea I've ever had for each novel, and then when I'm finished, it's like, holy hell, what do I do now? I've exhausted every good idea I've ever had, so now I've got to kind of reload. And so what I do is I read, books on ethics and philosophy and cosmology and nanotechnology and whatever it is, to keep on, getting new ideas in my head for novels and also kind of understanding science more broadly.
Well, just for a second, as far as the book Wired, that's the first one I found out about you. Where is that in the order of books as far as all the books you've written?
Yeah, that's number one. So that's really kind of the one that made my career.
That's the first book that you wrote?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was the first adult thriller. I wrote some middle school stuff, and then I tried that one, and it just went viral. And it was 5 weeks, like you said, on the New York Times and USA Today bestseller list, which was and that kind of made my career. So I was a biotechnology executive for many years. When that one kind of went viral and hit the New York Times list, I left biotech to do this full time.
And then, of course, there's number 2 book right after that, sort of the sequel, Amped. That was
right.
Also very exciting. And the character in those 2 books, Kira Miller, I mean, as I listened, and then she teams up with this David Desch, I mean, just the relationship that they had and the adventures and the perils that they went through, I found that very exciting, I think, and so many other people have. And those that haven't, that's a good place to start, Wired and Amped, I would suggest.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate that. So I have this latest one out called Unidentified, where I tried something different. So, I've got I think this is my 18th adult novel. The first 17 were all in third person, and I decided to try first person, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes if you don't do it right. And this one was about UFOs, because I've kind of become a little obsessed about them. For the longest time, I was super skeptical. I thought, the UFO sightings might be like mass delusions, kind of like vampires and werewolves. I believe that alien life exists, but light speed is really slow, and cosmic distances are huge. And so, I just didn't really think anybody was visiting us. But what's remarkable is the last few years. I don't know if you've been paying attention to 60 Minutes episodes and Congress getting official reports, and there are patents being published that I mentioned in this novel that'll just blow your mind. That the Navy's filing for patents and getting patents on basically craft that do what the UFOs do. I mean, they don't have any wings, they don't have any propellers, they can hover, they can move at 46,000 miles an hour. They can fly underwater, near Earth orbit. I mean, and these are, Navy. The Navy is admitting seeing these things on a daily basis. And now it's not just, an artifact, because they're seeing it on radar and infrared, and they're seeing it on multiple ways. And so it's just kind of, wow. I mean, this stuff is real. So what I thought I'd do is write a novel where I kind of review some of the current information that really shows that there's really something going on out there, and then have a fictional take on what's happening. Try to kind of address, why they haven't landed on the White House lawn. Why they're showing themselves to us, but they're not really formally showing themselves to us. And try to address these questions in a fast-paced thriller. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. And the reception so far has been really fantastic. So beyond my wildest dreams, especially, the first time I tried first person. So couldn't be happier with it.
We're talking with Douglas E. Richards. His new book is Unidentified. And right there, as you started to lay it out there, Douglas, I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I'm hearing about. I'm hearing my friends talk about it, UFOs. We're hearing about the people in the highest levels of government are talking about it. It's on the news. But one of the things I always wonder is, like you said, well, is it just some kind of, is it a drone? Is it something that we just can't identify? But the thing that I wonder is, yes, I believe that there's other life forms out there. But as far as the ones that we call UFOs, why don't they reach out? Why don't they say hello? Why don't they engage with us? Or do they? And we just never hear from those people again. I don't know, but it's totally very exciting to imagine those things and to see that maybe we are at the point in time of our human history that we may be engaging with them soon. I don't know.
It's really been fascinating to me. I never thought I'd see the day when the government would basically come out and admit that these sightings are real and they can't explain them, and they're doing stuff that defies the laws of physics, like on a daily basis. I never thought I'd see that day. And yeah, I mean, even then I thought, well, okay, they have the technology. If they can visit us and do all these physics-defying things, they can be stealthy. I mean, if they wanted to not be seen, they could not be seen. So why are they teasing us like this? I mean, Either land on the White House lawn and announce yourself, or completely hide from us. So why this middle ground? What's really going on? And so, I really I spent a lot of thought on trying to find a really exciting, imaginative thriller based around some ideas I had about what might be going on, or just a fictional take on it that that I thought was exciting and fun, and had a lot of big ideas. So it was kind of a fun project for me, and like I said, I'm real happy with how it turned out.
And well, without telling us too much, I am curious now in many ways about this particular book, Unidentified. Do you have, as far as human characters, do you have characters that are part of this adventure? If so, is there one or two?
I mean, there's, a principal protagonist and, well, two of them really. But, it's extended beyond that. I mean, basically it's a science fiction author, which is a little bit autobiographical, but it's a science fiction author who's kind of obsessed like me with finding out what's going on about UFOs. And so he goes about it by and I don't want to give away too many spoilers.
Don't tell us too much.
Yeah, the very beginning, where he goes about it, where he's going to kind of rattle some cages. He's going to go on a show like this that reaches millions of audience around the world, and he's going to, claim that he knows exactly what's going on, and he's going to, disclose this to the world, and he's hoping that there are people out there who don't want him to disclose it, who don't want the truth to be known, and so he's purposely trying to attract them. He's baiting them with himself. So, and I'll stop there, but that's kind of, and he's got this woman that he's with as well. But anyway, so I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, there you go. But the other thing, when we think about the phenomenon of, we're talking about here in the United States and all the attention, but do we hear, and maybe you know this in your research, do we hear about other countries talking about UFO sightings and things like that around the world?
Yeah, we sure do. No, they've had these projects, multiple countries. Like we've had Project Blue Book and all that kind of stuff. They've had their own projects, and a lot of our politicians, and I've got quotes in the novel. They believe that other countries are taken a lot more seriously than we do. I mean, we're so worried about appearances, and people think we're nuts by looking into this, and other countries are taking a much more sober approach and really. And they're ahead of us in terms of investigating this phenomenon. Our politicians are starting to realize that. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, really pushed getting this into the public eye, and so we're starting to catch up with other countries. But yeah, so definitely a worldwide phenomenon.
Well, I can't wait to read the book. One of the things we like to know about authors, I think you have a fascinating profession that you're in. But each author has a different way that you do your craft. Do you have a procedure? Do you write at a certain time every day? Is it morning, or how does that work when you sit down and write?
Yeah. I mean, so it takes me months to figure out what I'm going to write, and research it and read a bunch of books on it. Like my most successful novel ever, called Split Second, was kind of a time travel novel, but I wanted to make a unique twist on time travel that they'd never done before, and that's really hard to do because there's been thousands of books on time travel, hundreds of television shows and movies. Can I find anything new? So I kind of read dozens and dozens of short stories on time travel. I read books on the actual science of time travel, really tried to wrap my mind. It took me months, and I finally figured out a hook, something that was really unique, and it turned out it was the best-selling novel I've ever written, called Split Second. So there's a lot of preparation, a lot of effort before I write the first word, getting a sense of the technology I'll be pursuing and the implications of all of that stuff. And then, once I'm in the writing mode, I kind of get up at 6 every morning, walk down the hall to my home office. I can write 6-8 hours, and it's basically noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'm free to do whatever I want. So, I mean, I'm super lucky. I mean, I won the lottery. You have to be lucky no matter how good you are. There has to be a certain amount of luck to find an audience, because there's a lot of novels out there. So, I won the lottery, and I'm just super lucky, and I'll never forget that. And so I really, I never take my fans for granted. I'm just thrilled to have any fans. And so, if anybody ever writes to me, I always respond every time because, again, I'm incredibly lucky.
Well, as you know, that's what I did. I forget which book I was on out of the 3 that I read, but I reached out. I went to your website and said, hey, let's talk about this, because I think you're unique in terms of, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of suspense and people in perils and in trouble. I love the fact that you weaved science and that I walked away and learned a little bit something, especially about the human brain. I'm excited to go to the Split Second maybe as my next one and/or your newest one. But other than the newest book, and that is called Unidentified, I may want to go there first now I'm thinking about it. But anyway, Unidentified, if someone were to ask you after they read Unidentified, what would the next book in your arsenal would you tell them to go to if they asked you?
Boy, I wish I could tell you.
You have so many.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot. I mean, at the end of my, so if you go on Amazon and you look at the books, I mean, and it describes, it has a synopsis for each book. At the bottom, it'll have a list of all of my novels in kind of, the standalones and the series. I have, like 3 that I've done 2 books, and then I've got 1 trilogy. And what I would just suggest to people is just kind of read the synopsis of each one and see what sounds interesting to you and go from there. But they're all, they're all fairly I put a lot of pressure on myself because my fans are really passionate. Not everybody likes my stuff, obviously. You can't please everybody. But the ones that do like it really seem to like it passionately. And so I don't want to let them down. And so, it's more stressful writing now than before I had sold even a single book, because now, there's a lot of expectations.
Sure.
And my readers really feel like, the ones who read my stuff feel like there's no way I could write a bad book, which isn't true. I say, oh, I hope you like it. Oh my God, how could I not like it? And I'm thinking, boy, this is putting a lot of pressure on me to deliver. I don't want to disappoint anybody, so I work, extra hard to try to keep the quality. You've seen authors. I've have authors that I love that, they start kind of not phoning it in, but, as they get more and more successful and have more and more books, I think sometimes the quality deteriorates a little bit. And so I've really worked hard to try to prevent that.
We're talking with Douglas E. Richards. The website is douglaserichards.com. You can see all the books that we're talking about. And, yeah, I think that's fascinating. I'm going to go with Unidentified as my next one. But how many books are you writing a year? Is there a certain amount you're doing a year, or it's just whenever? Like Immortality Code looks like that was also 2021 as well. So are you at 2 books a year, or how does that work?
No, it's probably like every 8 or 9 months. Okay. But I'm working, 50 hours a week. I work 7 days a week. Once I'm writing a novel, I kind of get immersed in it, and I kind of have to write it to keep the momentum going. But, and by the way, any of this that goes to my website, I don't have Unidentified on there yet. I've been a little remiss, but I've got to put that on there. And also, I apologize ahead of time. It's not a great website. A lot of people are much better at marketing than I am, and social media and all that stuff. I'm super weak in that area, but I'm lucky enough that the word of mouth has been good. So anyway, so yeah, the website is okay, but it's not as glossy and slick as most author websites. But anyway.
Well, certainly people could see the new book on Amazon, right? Amazon website. Exactly. As well as, are you doing any tours with this book? Are you going around the United States, or you can't? No,
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm kind of just a recluse at home. I really don't travel much anymore. But like I said, I'm super lucky, and I get to do what I love doing, and it's been working out great.
Well, you pretty much have the perfect weather there in San Diego. I love that place. It is just very, very nice. Before we close the segment, Douglas E. Richards, what else do you want people to know?
I really can't think of anything. Just, obviously, if anybody reads a novel and has anything to say, like I say, I encourage people to write emails to me and say hello, and I'll always respond. You can also friend me on Facebook at Douglas E. Richards Author is my Facebook handle, and the email address is douglaserichards1@gmail.com if anybody wants to get in touch. But other than that, I think that's about it.
douglaserichards.com. One other thing, as far as your new book, Unidentified, you're talking about it now on various shows, but when do you know when the next book is going to come? Do you have an idea yet, or you're tossing around ideas, or are you just taking a break until a certain time?
I'm taking a break. I want to see how this one does. If it blows it out, then I'll probably do a sequel. Right now, it's looking good. I mean, the reception has been really, really strong. I was kind of hoping that it might be, because the zeitgeist right now about UFOs is pretty strong.
Very timely.
And yeah, so I think it's very a topic that people are really interested in, and I think the plot twists and all that people are really liking. So I have high hopes that it's going to continue to do well, and I'll be writing a sequel.
Sounds great. Douglas, thank you so much for being on the show. DouglasERichards.com.
Hey, thanks a lot, Bill. I really appreciate it.
Well, there you go. That's show number 2 on KPRC. I hope you enjoyed the show. Great contributions there from Neal about sales, and also Douglas E. Richards. And I can tell you once again, as I've said, Douglas is someone that I've just discovered, and I loved how he blends in the action, drama, very interesting characters, but also he brings to it a scientific edge with his microbiology background. So there you go. Show number 2, actually show number 314 on KPRC. So more great things to happen on the show. We'll have authors, business people. We'll talk food on the show. So many great things. Just with each and every guest, each and every segment, I think you'll find, as I do, interesting things about the guest, things that we might apply to our lives or learn about, and also, at the very least, be entertained along the way, as I know I strive my best to have great conversations with people. So simply go to radiobill.net. If you're listening at the time of broadcast, you can go to the website to see the guests. Now, on these first 2 shows, I have pictures, still pictures, because my interviews were by phone, and also a still picture of me, as I just have been to the dermatologist lately, and I have had some work done on my face. So in the meantime, we'll at least have some show videos in future shows simply by accessing my YouTube channel at radiobill.net. When you go to the website, you'll see past shows there, and you'll also see this show again and other shows that I'm involved with. I'm involved with a tremendous real estate show called Real Estate Matters. So a lot of good things there. In fact, on the Successful Living show last year, before we took a year break, we had actor Robert Duvall. If you're like me and a movie fan and or a super fan of Robert Duvall, he was so generous with his time. It was very interesting to have the opportunity to talk to Robert, and he spent a full 48 minutes. You talk about kind and a nice guy. He talked about his work with Marlon Brando going way back to Kill a Mockingbird, one of his first movies. He talked about Brando again on the set of The Godfather. He talked about Lonesome Dove, and it was just super, as well as all the other guests that we have had. And you could see all that on the radiobill.net site. And at the very least, if you see a guest that you want to find out about or hear, you could just Google my name, Bill Knapik. That's Bill, Knapik. You can Google my name and whatever guest you want to see, and that YouTube video most of the time will pop up. So a lot of great entertainment on there, and some other super things. Another interview I'll point out to you on the last edition of Successful Living, or the last season we'll call it, is my interview with Chris Hadfield. Chris is a former commander of the International Space Station. Again, you could Google my name and his. That interview should come up. It was from a couple years ago, but he was the first Canadian in outer space. He commanded the International Space Station on 3 missions, and he was in space a total of 166 days. He's also well known for his cover song of the David Bowie Space Oddity, which he filmed in the space station with the permission of David Bowie. Great things. I'm talking to great people. I hope you're enjoying that. Simply go to radiobill.net. Tune in next week as we continue. Great guest and all that right there, radiobill.net. And as we're in this holiday season, it's exciting. Great weather here in the Houston, Texas area, and wherever you're at, I hope you're enjoying that as well. But certainly the Thanksgiving season, I'm so thankful to get to do what I love, and I hope you're thankful for what you do and all the blessings that you have. And of course, here comes Christmas right around the corner and a brand new year. So thanks for listening to Successful Living with Bill Knapik. I'm Bill Knapik, inviting you to join me once again each and every weekend from 8 to 9, KPRC or radiobill.net.